I've worked at Target for over a decade, and for most of that time, it's been a steady, predictable job. I thrive on routine, counting cash, balancing registers, making sure every penny adds up. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, or at least, I thought it was. It started small, $1 missing here, a few cents off there. At first, I chalked it up to human error, but as the weeks went on, the discrepancies became harder to ignore. They weren't random. They followed a pattern, always small enough to go unnoticed, but consistent. I began cross-referencing receipts with inventory logs, and that's when I realized something was seriously wrong. The numbers didn't add up. Items were being marked as sold, but the cash wasn't making it into the registers. At first, I thought it was a glitch, but the more I dug, the more I uncovered. Inventory was disappearing, and records were being altered. It wasn't just one person. It was a network, managers, employees, even people outside the store. They were embezzling money, and they'd been doing it for years. I didn't know what to do. I thought about going to the police, but I wasn't sure who I could trust. Then, one day, I found a note in my locker. It was typed, unsigned. "Stop digging. You don't want to know what happens next." My stomach dropped. I told myself it was a prank, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Someone was watching me. The store felt different after that. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, and the shadows in the aisles seemed darker. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights, made my heart race. I started noticing things, strangers lingering in the parking lot, unfamiliar faces in the break room. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. One night after closing, I stayed late to finish some paperwork. The store was eerily quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your skin crawl. I was in the back office, going over the numbers one last time, when I heard it. A faint click, like a door closing. I froze. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I told myself it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I grabbed my bag and headed for the exit, my footsteps echoing in the empty store. That's when I saw them. 3 figures standing by the front doors, silhouetted against the dim light. I turned and ran, my heart pounding. I could hear footsteps behind me, getting closer. I ducked into an aisle, crouching behind a display of cereal boxes, and held my breath. The footsteps slowed, then stopped. I could hear whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. After what felt like an eternity, the footsteps faded. I waited a few more minutes, then made a break for the emergency exit. I didn't look back. I quit my job the next day. I didn't give a reason. I just handed in my badge and walked out. I never told anyone what I'd discovered, and I never went back to that store. But I still think about it sometimes. The missing money, the altered records, the note in my locker, and the figures by the door. I don't know who they were or what they wanted. Maybe they were just trying to scare me, or maybe they were planning something worse. I'll never know for sure. But one thing's certain, Target will never feel the same to me again. And sometimes, late at night, I still hear those footsteps. I've tried to move on, but the experience has left me deeply scarred. I can't walk into a store without feeling uneasy. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone watching me. The thought of going back to work in retail is out of the question. I found a new job, one that keeps me as far away from cash registers and inventory logs as possible. But even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. I've changed my routines, moved to a new apartment, and even changed my phone number. But the paranoia lingers. I've thought about reaching out to someone, maybe a journalist or a private investigator. But the memory of that note in my locker stops me every time. The truth is, I don't know who was behind the embezzlement scheme or how deep it went. I don't know if the people who confronted me that night were part of it, or if they were just hired muscle sent to scare me off. And I don't know if they're still out there, watching and waiting. What I do know is that the world is a darker place than I ever realized. The most unassuming places, a quiet Target store, a familiar break room, a row of neatly stocked shelves, can hide the most sinister secrets. And sometimes the scariest thing isn't the monsters we imagine, but the ones that walk among us, unnoticed and unchallenged. So I keep my head down and try to move forward. But every now and then, when the lights flicker or the floor creaks, I'm reminded of that night. And I wonder if I'll ever truly be safe again. The footsteps,